Hello, welcome to Grow New Plants. So today I'm going to finally plant my bald cypress seeds. I did a video on collecting these and storing these things last year, and I got some advice from Dr. Carl Whitcomb, who's, as far as I'm concerned, is the utmost authority on growing and planting trees. And he told me that the easiest way to do these things is just to collect them, break them apart, and then just store them in a jar in the garage or outside in natural temperatures. And that's what I did. There's all kinds of stuff out there about chemical treatments and soaking them and heating them and all kinds of different things, you know, physically grinding down to get into the embryo, all kinds of crazy stuff on these things. But I just kind of went by his advice. I got a ton of these seeds. I'll show you a picture of my tree real quick. I got a huge tree on the side of my yard, and so I've had trees come up wild, so I know they got good viable seeds. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you that picture, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go through and I'm going to separate out. I'm going to plant 64 of these, two 32 cell trays. So I'm going to go through and pick out about 70 of the biggest, fattest ones. I'll do that off camera, and we'll come back and we'll start planting them. So this is my bald cypress tree that I get all these seeds from. Okay, so I think I picked out maybe about 80 seeds, so I got to make sure I got plenty in case I lose a few or if you look bad or whatever. So I got plenty of seeds here, so I'm ready to start planting these things. So I'm going to take my soil mix, which is half perlite, half peat moss, and then I have Osmocote slow release fertilizer. I believe it's the 16. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the numbers are on it, but I know it's the 6 to 9 month slow release. So I'm just going to take these and fill them up, pack them reasonably, not too hard, and then I'll just push the seeds down maybe about a ½ inch down into the ground. So I'll just put a seed down in each one. Pretty basic. And these are the ones I'm more nervous about than anything else, because I know they're hard to germinate. But I sure would like to get some. I love these trees. If you got a wet location, this is one of the best trees in the world. That tree that I showed you in the video, that tree was, I planted 2 or 3 trees there. The drainage is not real good on that side of the house. I'd planted 2 or 3 different trees there, and all of them had died. And I think they just basically just were too wet, and they just couldn't take it. And I planted that bald cypress in there, and man, that thing just thrived. It's a huge tree now. Shades the whole side of my house and part of my backyard. They're great trees, but if you know, they need water, they'll grow. In a drier location, they just won't thrive as much. But if you've got a wet location somewhere on your property, in your yard or whatever, that stays kind of wet, then they will just absolutely thrive. Or plant them next to a pond or something like that, for sure they'll do excellent. So they're a very unique tree. So here's one of them, and I'll show you how just basically how I kind of secure these seeds down in here a little bit. So I got a seed in each one of them. And basically I just kind of take them and just press them in where they make good good contact with the soil. They don't want to be too deep. They're probably going to end up being, when it's all said and done, they'll be about a ½ inch or so down into the soil. So I just kind of press them all down in there like that. And then I just come back and put a little bit more soil, kind of spread it across the top, just to get the soil level across the top of the tray. Okay, so I've got one more to do, and I'll time lapse through the second one, and we'll come back and talk about them just a little bit more before we go sit them out on the plant tables. Okay, so I got all 64 of them planted now. That didn't take very long. Now, the biggest thing on these, it's like with any of these trees that I'm planting, I'll water these things in very gently, get them good and soaked all the way through, and then you just want to keep them moist. The whole point of the perlite in here is you don't want to keep them sopping wet, but you want them to be moist all the time, but you want them to drain well. So I've got them on my grow tables, or my plant tables in the backyard, and they've got wire mesh underneath them so the water can drain out of them. So I'm just going to keep them watered. I've got sprinkler systems set up on it with mister heads. I'll just keep them, I'll water them every day, probably 10 minutes a day. And when it starts getting hotter, I may water them once in the morning, once in the evening. Basically, just want to keep them moist until they have time to germinate and start putting roots up. Once they start putting roots down and growing, they can withstand drying out a little bit more, but until that point, it's pretty important that you keep them moist all the time. So anyway, hopefully within a month or so, the daytime temperatures are getting up in the 80s where I'm at, and low temperatures are getting in the upper 60s. So you want soil temperatures at around 70 degrees or so to really start germination. So they should reach that. The nighttime temperatures getting just in the low 60s or the high 60s should allow the soil temperature to stay up close to 70 degrees. So they should be prime time for germination now. So we'll see. So I'll come back, I'll do a follow-up on these and let you know how they did. I appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share my videos. Thank you.